Hi, I'm Suzanne, and I am your seasoned aura chakra and energy analyst. I've been working with the Biopulsar for over 20 years, and in this video, I wanted to explain some of the dynamics of the system so you understand how authentic this system is and why you may want to either one, get a personal consultation on it, or two, add it to your business as one of your services. And in fact, I tell all practitioners every session should begin with a scan on the biopulsar because from your initial scan, you can then determine what you need to do during the rest of the session. Now, I wanted to talk a bit about the system itself because there's a lot of systems out there that actually measure one or via one sensor, and they're supposed to get an overview of the whole. They're supposed to tell you what the measuring of the liver is or the kidney or the heart from one sensor. Well, scientifically, that's impossible. Whereas the biopulsar, this is what blows me away about how phenomenal this system is that you can see there's 49 sensors on the hand plate, and each sensor is picking up a dynamic of our physicality, whether it's an organ, an endocrine gland, or a part of our brain. We're actually measuring 49 parts of the body. And all organs work together in a network or they work in conjunction with the brain. So it's important to have an assessment of every single body part to get the accumulated data. Again, it's scientifically impossible just by taking one probe and measuring a single energy channel that you would conceive that you would get a complete aura analysis or a complete chakra flow assessment or an assessment of the whole body. Again, impossible. Whereas with our technology, you're getting a lot of evidence. And evidence is really important nowadays because especially when we go into the metaphysics, or we're trying to bridge the gap between conventional and alternative medicine, we need to have the tangible proof of what it is that we're assessing. And the woman who created this device, she is phenomenal because of the fact not only is she trained as a traditional Eastern Chinese medicine practitioner, she also has training as a homeopathic doctor, an Ayurvedic practitioner, plus from a young age she was gifted in seeing the aura and not just the a shadow of the subtle energy, but details of the aura. And she wanted to create something that was more scientific based that could prove the connection between the physical body and the energetics. Now, one of the things that I've been studying for over 30 years is color vibrational energy medicine. And what that means is that every frequency can be related to a color in specific terminology of nanometers. And the biopulsar is literally taking the pulse frequency of an organ and then translating that pulse into a vitality that we can see multidimensionally in a linear format in graphs, as well as we can see the full body aura and the chakra flow in detail. Because again, in the metaphysical, in metaphysics, we understand that the aura is connected to every organ and gland, and every organ and gland also is connected to a major chakra center. So again, to think that you can get a measuring of your 7 chakras, every organ and gland, your brain from one sensor, you can understand where I'm going with this. The biopulsar is the only device in the world that really bridges the gap between alternative and conventional medicine. Now today, I'm going to talk about some of the dynamics of the biopulsar so you get a deeper understanding of energy medicine. And I remember one medical doctor came through my training and he said that the way I described energy medicine in conjunction with conventional medicine, he said, I was the only one that was able to bridge the gap for him so he understood the two. So hopefully in this video, you're going to get exactly what I'm trying to express in regards to the physical and the metaphysical connection. So now I'd like to introduce to you more about the biopulsar technology. Now on my screen you see 3 different windows, one depicting the aura analysis, another one that's giving you the organ vitality, and then third picture that is actually illustrating the chakra flow. This is the holisticness of the program. Not only do we get that medical component of the vitality of the organs, but energetically we can see how that pulse frequency, that frequency that's being measured of the organ, the health, how it translates into the color dynamics, and how it takes that data and puts it into an understanding of our energy flow through the chakras, or what we can refer to as the neural energy network centers. So my forte is reading the aura. I love introducing people to what their aura map looks like. In a way, it's advanced thermography, because what is thermography? It's actually indicating a temperature, a heat signature, or vibration of an organ or gland. However, what's different about the biopulsar is that we have unlimited colors that can be projected. Now, this morning I was just reading on the internet about all the different emotions that there are, and this author of this one site that I went to basically said there are as many emotions as there are colors. And I love the way he said that, because in the language of color, all these different colors have an emotional connection. Now, what that means is whatever color we see in an organ, it tells us exactly the attitude of that organ, not only on a vibratory level of the health, but also the health of the emotions, the thoughts, the beliefs, the connection to our spirit. So this again is indicating why the biopulsar is that holistic device. And we get every organ in a 3-digit number value. And just by using one of our shortcut buttons, instantly we just click on this button called Excel Export, because we can import the data into an Excel spreadsheet and accumulate the data to study the client's energy dynamics over a period of time, whether it's the same day and you're doing before and after sessions of maybe you're doing biofeedback on nutritional testing or mental training. These are some of the ways that you can use the biopulsar. But this 3-digit format tells us the health of every organ and gland being measured. And that's really important, because one of the things that we have to understand is we have a specific biorhythm to our energy. Our biorhythms are affected by many things. However, we do have ebbs and flows to our energy. It's sort of like some days we wake up and we feel very excited. Other days we wake up and we're extremely tired. Some days we're more acute. Other days we don't notice anything. This is the biorhythm of our individual energy, and there's a lot of factors that can affect our energy, from how we sleep, what we recently ate, different stresses that are happening in our life, our environmental components, air quality, all kinds of things actually affect our being on a daily basis. So we have constants in our energy and we have fluctuations in our energy based on all these different things. So when I'm monitoring whether it's my own energy or the energy of another person, I'm looking at their energy over a period of time. And that gives me an understanding of their baseline as well as their differentiating factors. So this leads me to ask people questions based on the things that I see as weak or maybe in a hyperactive state. And this is what these numbers indicate. They indicate whether an organ is within the normal range or whether it's hyperactive or hypoactive. Now, similar to modern medicine, we understand that there is a normal state to every organ and gland. That is proven. However, anything that goes into hyperactivity is illustrating that that organ is working harder, because maybe there's something going on that that organ has to work harder for. For example, if you have some toxicity in your food, then your digestive system may work harder to assimilate or to process the food that you've taken in. Whereas if an organ is weak, that's indicating that now that organ is under much more stress, because maybe it's been working overtime for a long period of time. And so eventually that organ starts to get weaker because it can't hold that fast frequency. So in modern medicine, there's 3 stages of stress: hyperactivity, hypoactivity, and the state of exhaustion. So based on the different number values, we can see exactly where that organ is, whether it is hyper, hypo, or totally exhausted. Plus, that number value correlates to the energy reading that we're measuring as part of the aura. But again, we can look at the colors in a few different ways. One, we can look at it from that medical perspective, because similar to thermography, when we see red in an organ, that means heat and inflammation. That organ is irritated. Okay? Whereas on a psychosomatic level, red in an organ can be anger and aggression. Now, on a positive side, it could also be passion. So on the biopulsar, we look at exactly the color. Is that color bright? Is it dull? Is it dark and dirty? These different parameters illustrate to us the exact frequency that's being held in that organ. And again, it relates to that emotional attitude, and that emotional attitude can be connected to our thoughts, our beliefs, and our spiritual connection. And, of course, because we're not going to have time to cover every single topic that relates to the biopulsar, but in a nutshell, I'll give you some different examples so you can understand how the system can be used. But the number value is, to me, very important to monitor when you're doing continual assessments of a client. And even with myself, what made me a believer of this system is where I had been sick ever since I was a child showed up on the technology, and not one other piece of medical equipment picked it up without my actually informing the doctor about that first. And nor did one alternative practitioner or one intuitive ever describe that area to me as a weakness, because it wasn't something that was visually seen. So with the system, it really pinpoints areas of weakness, and it's unbiased. This isn't based on me looking at somebody and making a judgment. This is unbiased information, and it's presented in an empirical format that you can study a person's energy at that moment in time or over a period of time. To me, that's really exciting, because that's the evidence we need to bridge that gap between alternative and conventional medicine. And the biopulsar is one of the few medical devices out there that instantly shows the whole body. We're seeing 8 different brain parameters. We're seeing the complete endocrine system flow, and as well, we're seeing every major organ in the body and body part. That is the holisticness of the technology. So once we start reviewing the different numbers, we can see what organs we need to work on that are illustrating that energetic weakness or blockage. Now I'm just going to close this window, and we're going to go to the graphs, because this is that linear format where we can study even in more details about every organ and gland. Now, normally what we do is the measuring takes anywhere between 1 to 2 minutes, and we would see the red harmony line going across the whole screen to illustrate a good pattern of energy that we can then deduce. So what I'm looking at is I'm looking that the red measuring line is right on that green harmony line. That illustrates the optimal energy flow in that organ. And when we see it slightly above or slightly below, that still is within the normal range. The optimal level is between 6 and 6.5, whereas if it's slightly hyperactive, we might see it between 6.5 and 7, or if it's slightly hypoactive, we'll see it between that 5 and 6 range. So between 5 and 7 is a healthy energy flow. And again, that is illustrating that that organ, gland, or part of the brain is healthy. Whereas when we see energy fluctuations below or above, then we know that there's excesses. Now with this individual, we can see that the kidney is working harder, and this person does have problems with their kidney. Now, likewise, we can also see that their thyroid gland is hyperactive. It's at the number value 8, and that's illustrating it's having to work harder than normal. And one of the things that we can note is when we see a lot of the graph lines just slightly above the green harmony line, I right away look at the thyroid gland, because often when people have an imbalance with the thyroid, their hand will be slightly filled with more perspiration. So we're going to see the number values at a higher level. So when I'm doing an assessment, I'm looking at the overall state. Is there a lot of hyperactivity? And that can also equate to other alternative sciences. For example, people who are Vata frequencies, their number values will be between that 6.5 and 8 range, which indicates a very fast energy dynamics. Normally, people who have fast frequency are thinner and taller in stature. So therefore, we can equate that hyperactivity to their constitution. Similarly, when we see a lot of the values between 4 and 6, that is more the kapha frequency. And when we see organs that are falling down and can't hold their energy, then we can understand that that's an imbalanced pitta. So there's a lot of different ways we can actually assess the data that we see on the screen based on what your forte is. Now, because my forte is the color language, I'm looking at the colors of the organs to tell me about the constitutional state, but also on the psychosomatic level. Okay, so when we go to the adrenal gland, it's at a hyperactive state and it's in the indigo hue. This tells me that this person is actually experiencing fear in their life, because we do understand that the adrenal is our ability to fight. And when we don't have that power in our adrenal because we don't have that optimal energy flow or that balanced energy in the adrenal, then if we go into excess, based on the color, we can understand more about the constitutional state. And when you learn about the different colors, the color indigo is connected to anxiety, fear, worry, doubt. So when the adrenals are showing in that indigo hue, then you can understand that the adrenals are hyperactive, resultant of that emotional connection. So when we go into the psychosomatics, we can look at every imbalanced organ and gland and understand more about what's going on with that person. And we can also see that indigo color is in their thoughts. So this is indicating not only do they have struggles with fear and anxiety in their body, we can also see it is in their thoughts. It's in, the connection of their ability to think about things. So for example, when somebody is trying to think about the future and they have that indigo frequency in their brain, then you can understand that they may be paralyzed because they have anxiety in relationship to their planning abilities of future, possibilities. I hope that makes sense. But again, we elaborate more on that in our training program. And when you purchase the Biopulsar, we have this incredible course called Color Vibrational Energy. And it teaches you about the language of colors and chakras and how it relates on that psychosomatic level and how we can look at it from that perspective of the health level. So when you're actually working with the Biopulsar initially, you're learning about the different ways to use the biofeedback and to interpret the data. Okay, so moving on. The aura tells us a lot about what's going on, and I look at the energy flow. Are the colors in the brain areas similar to what I see in the body? Because that would tell me that there is a body, mind, and spirit connection. But if I see that the colors above the brain are not in harmony with the body, then that would cause conflict. Similarly, I look at the hyperactive colors versus the hypoactive colors. And hypoactive colors are low or slow frequencies such as red, orange, yellow. And on a constitutional level, that marries up to different aspects that are taught in both conventional and alternative medicine, specifically Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine. We understand that yellow represents in the bile constitution. So when we see yellow in an organ and that yellow is tainted, then we can understand that there's a toxic overload in that organ. So we can actually, really analyze the colors on that health level. And again, on a psychosomatic level, that yellow can extend into attributes connected to that yellow frequency, such as, on a positive level, yellow is optimism and joy. On the negative level, it could be critical and condescending, judgmental, other characteristics, that pertain to an imbalanced solar plexus yellow frequency. The graphs, we look at the graphs and we look at deviations. We look at fluctuations. When we see that an organ is under extreme stress, you'll see the red measuring line being very erratic. And in cases where the energy can't hold, the red measuring line will fall down. That's indicating that the energy may start at a certain level and then it plateaus. When I see a lot of that, I'll ask the client, are you experiencing tiredness in your life? Do you find that you get this boost of energy and all of a sudden you're extremely tired? You get a boost of energy and then you're tired again, where, maybe mid-afternoon they have to take a nap, or that they're extremely, low in vitality, that they have a hard time concentrating or being in their work. Okay. When we look at the energy flow of the chakras, that is illustrating how our energy is running, and it goes from the base to the crown chakra. And when the lower chakras are weak, that will also indicate an energy imbalance where the energy isn't strong throughout the whole day. And when we see a lot of energy accumulated in the brain, then sometimes that could be somebody who's flighty and, has a lot of thoughts going on simultaneously. That focus and concentration is very difficult. Now, there's a lot of different ways we can read the information, because again, what we're doing is we're actually merging different alternative thoughts, and so therefore we can look at things from multiple perspectives. So one, we have the health reading of the organ. Then we're getting the numerical value for the empirical study of that organ over time. And that also illustrates, or shows us where we need to focus. We can see things before they come, or we can see things after they've already hit. And this is one of the things that with the dialogue of the client, you'll understand if it's something that is an extenuating circumstance or if it's something that's newly developing. So I could give you lots of examples on that, but often when I assess something, for example, I had one woman where I couldn't even register her hip on the Biopulsar, and she told me she was slated for hip surgery. There was also another man that I had done a scan for, and he also had a weakness in his hip, and he told me that he was a soccer player and he went to go hit the ball, and he obviously went to hit it very hard, and he threw his whole hip out of socket. And what was interesting, I saw the same color and the same low frequency in the shoulder and the neck area. So when I told him that I saw this correlating data, he told me that because after his hip was thrown out of his socket, that his equilibrium was out of balance, his atlas was off, and his neck and shoulder became affected, that he started to suffer pain in that area as well. So I'm always looking for patterns. Patterns can be shown in the same number value, the same color value, or in the graphs in the same level of the measuring line. So we look at different patterns of our brain, how it connects to our body, how it connects to the colors, how it connects to the chakra flow, and from that we can build a complete holistic picture. So what I want to do now is I want to go through the 3 different softwares so you can see the details of how you can use the Biopulsar for your own wellness or in your own practice. So when we first look at the aura picture, what I'm doing is I'm scrolling down to see the different color frequencies of every organs and gland. And the reason why I do that is I'm looking at the areas of weakness. Things that are hyperactive could just be resultant of what's going on in that person's day. But when we see hypoactivity, that means that the energy has dropped down because there's more seriousness. The organ has been affected over a longer period of time, and now it's in a weakened state. So first and foremost, I look for anything gray. That means lack of electrolyte activity, dehydration, scars, burned tissue. So these are different things that we can look at when we see the gray, but because we know that the number value is weak, we know that that organ is weak, we're going to figure out what we can do to reverse it. And we're going to look at why that organ is weak. Now in this client, there are no areas of gray, but there are some areas that are yellow and orange. So when I look at the neck, for example, that's showing me a very dull orange. And orange is about the waterworks system, but if the waterworks system is weak and there isn't the flow of energy, then we can understand why in the neck area there's stress. And as the neck gets weaker, we'll start to see the red come in, which will be the heat and inflammation, and that's when people really start to feel the pain. And then of course, if there's absence of energy where it's gray, then that is a disconnect. And over a period of time, that will lead to a lot of, physical problems in that area. So I'm always looking at, the areas of weakness and how we can then create better energy flow. And we could do that through diet, exercise. I do a lot of salt therapy to re-energize an area of weakness. There's so many things that we can do, and that's part of what we train you, is different things that you can do to help support that weak organ. Now, other things that I look at is any colors that are similar and in fact identical. So when I look, is there any other organ that shows that orange? No, there isn't. So that's indicating to me that that is an isolated incident. However, when I look at the cerebellum and the forehead, the yellow is exactly the same color. So that tells me on a psychological level that there is that connection between the back of the brain and the forehead brain. So again, we would look at that as to how that pertains to what's going on in the client's life and what that can mean both on a physical and psychological level. The next thing I do is I look at the graphs. I'm looking at the red measuring line specifically. Is it strong and stable? Is it showing fluctuations? Is it falling down? Is it going up? All these different things tell us a different story. Plus, how many organs resonate in that same sort of constitutional state gives us a lot of information. So for example, if I see a lot of the graphs going down, that could represent that the energy is weak in that organ and can't be held. And it can also show you that there could be possibilities of allergies in that organ. We often see that when organs are being affected by different allergies, and it could be things like hay fever or food sensitivities. The last thing that we're looking at is the energy flow through the chakras. The closer the number values are together, the stronger the energy flow. The more the numbers are apart from each other, the farther the energy flow, the farther the communication between the different endocrine glands, as well as what we refer to as the chakra centers. Now, this is important to note because if one chakra is exceedingly high and another one is exceedingly weak, then we can understand that there is going to be a conflict between those two energies, which again further tells us a story. And in this case, where the root chakra is 46 and the highest chakra is 74, which is the heart, that's a 30-point difference. So this could be illustrating a lot of stress on the heart. And again, the more you study the chakra system, the more you'll understand that when somebody's root is weak, then that could mean that they're deficient of essential minerals and also iron. And when iron is weak, that will put more stress on the heart. So the heart organ itself works higher, and that can end into having more stress, because if the body doesn't have enough iron, then we're going to see the lack of oxygen in the blood, which will put more stress on the heart. So we're looking at different factors overall when we're looking at the different software that is presented in the Biopulsar. So this way we can come to a very concrete, evidence-based, holistic determination or a holistic assessment. The Biopulsar is the only system that gives you the evidence of everything, so you can do a very evidence-based holistic examination. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions, please call me. And if you're interested in getting a personal reading or implementing the Biopulsar in your own practice, give me a call at 1-800-225-1226.